So like two things I kind of want to get into today is the idea of, well, in general, people leaving Canada. People,
Yeah.
this is like a common thread right now.
Mm-hmm.
I'm planning my move to Cedar Park, which is like one of the burbs here
Yep.
in Austin. Have you fully committed? You've made the move down here?
I mean, yeah. I mean, I have a place that I've been here for a year.
Right. So this is not a new phenomenon though. So it's pretty common. Someone finds success and then see you later, Canada. the
Pretty
all
much.
all the scene, everything is down here in the U.S. Right?
I mean, they call it the brain drain, and I mean, every country has it with their top talent of any industry. You know, the best lawyers, the best doctors, a lot of them do move to Canada. I know right now the new propaganda is like, oh, America's losing doctors because of Trump, and you know, university professors are moving to Toronto. It's like, yeah, they're all woke. They're all the wokest. They're not the best. They're people who are probably brainwashed, have like Trump derangement syndrome, and they're like, oh, I'll go be a doctor in Canada and take a, you know, I'll make less money, but at least I'm not in America. And so those people suck, I think.
And there's not too many of them. The way it's looking, I mean, like economics is largely why people come south, right? So you find yourself some success. You think, well, there's bigger fish to fry. I'm gonna go where all the big fish are.
Yeah.
So, you know, whether you're a doctor, an engineer, a comedian, actor, like this is really the hub.
Yeah. I mean, if you're like, a lot of comics have always moved to the States, obviously. Jim Carrey, Norm Macdonald. I mean, it's not like a new phenomenon because, I mean, comedy has a ceiling in Canada. We all know that. And once you know, there's two ways to do it. You either make the move before you have a following. I mean, before social media, Norm Macdonald, those guys, they kind of got scouted a bit, or they went down to the comedy store or other comedy clubs in the States, and they were like, yeah, you're hilarious, so you can be here. I mean, Norm was pretty fast getting a lot of things from, you know, being able to tour in the States. I think so before social media, when Just for Laughs was a bigger thing, you would go to Just for Laughs, and American comics would go to Just for Laughs as well in Montreal, and they would get development deals or other deals for sitcoms and things like that. So they give you like $250K to like $500K to come down to Cali and make a pilot, or like a like 5 episodes of a series, and you just get that money, and even if the show didn't go anywhere, and then sometimes the shows would go somewhere. And
That's how you get your Seinfeld and all these other shows.
pretty much,
Yeah.
yeah. So, yeah, they would come down, they'd do these development deals, and then a lot of times they'd stay here. But now there's comics that move here thinking, okay, well, I'm not doing so great in Canada, but I have a few accolades. I did Just for Laughs, I did Halifax Comedy Festival, whatever it is. So then they use that to get a visa, and then they come down here, and then they struggle. And usually they just end up going back because they don't make any money. They don't focus properly on social media.
Well, you still have to be good at what you do.
You still have to be good, and nowadays you have to run your own social media too and kind of blow yourself up, because if you don't have like 100K followers on some platform, then it's going to be really hard for you to sell. You can't sell any tickets. You can't get an agent. I mean, agents aren't going to work with you unless you have a following and a track record of selling tickets.
Right.
So I had the track record. My first comedy tour in Canada was Permission to Laugh tour, and at that point, I think I was around 30K, maybe 40,000 followers, and grew it from there. But we were able to sell out all the Yuck Yuckses across the country, from Toronto, Vancouver, Halifax, and Alberta, whatnot, and yeah, I used that information, and then I, to get an agent in terms of like what tickets I was selling, and then I also had American fans already through social media that were like, come to New York, come to LA, come to Texas. So when I moved here, I got my visa in Jan or Feb of 2024, and I had a tour starting in May, and half those shows were like sold out. So
So tell me about this. Like, so you have the traditional media role. You're talking about like piloting
Yeah.
sitcoms, that kind of thing, and then you have like Just for Laughs in Canada.
Mm-hmm.
Now, a lot of these, I guess you call it like an institution in comedy.
Yeah.
They've gone a completely different approach to what comedy is doing. I mean, you see just like wokeness. And like Just for Laughs, let's put it like bluntly, has always just been kind of PG-13. Like people do a set, and then it's not like their real set. Like if you want to see their real set.
I mean, yes and no. They do have that for TV, for TV kind of censored aspect of it, but they always used to have a nasty show.
Oh,
which
okay.
Louis C.K. was on. I don't know if he was on that. He was on the gala performances, and so was Patrice O'Neill. But they would also do nasty show. There were other shows there that were like uncensored, unfiltered. But what's happened because of woke is if you're a Canadian comic and you want to do Just for Laughs, most of the Canadian comics, probably like 99% of them, have no following. So they're picking comics based on, the government funded, because it's government funded, most of it, or subsidized, JFL. They're picking comics that, push the agenda of whatever woke bullshit. Go watch a Rick Mercer comedy. I don't know if your American followers know who the hell Rick Mercer is. He's like a gay guy from fucking. Or maybe I'm not so. Can I swear a little bit?
Yeah, let it go.
No, yeah,
let it go.
but I'm going to try not to too much because I know the algorithm with the lives and stuff. But
it's actually for me, it's more about I have a lot of my audience that watch videos with the kids, in the same room. So
right.
I just don't swear. I try not to.
That's good. Yeah. Well. Yeah. They just push the agenda of. I mean, during COVID, there was a lot of pro-vaccine comics on Just for Laughs, especially Canadian comics.
Right. Which just sounds like propaganda, really. Like at the end of the day, it's like if you're doing like what's so funny about get your booster? Like it doesn't seem really.
There's not that much funny about it. They would try to make it funny, and liberals, I guess, would find it funny and stuff like that. But yeah, the Canadian Just for Laughs system the way it used to work, I told you about, where you get the pilot and you get the money. They don't have that anymore. So if you're a Canadian comic going to Just for Laughs, you basically get nothing. Like you might get like between $1,500 and maybe $4,000 Canadian to do a show or a few shows, and then you're back to your hometown, and that's you're just.
So there's no leg up from it. Like you're not getting anywhere. It's not a stepping stone anymore.
No, and CBC, like if you get a CBC comedy gala or special, I don't know what the affiliation with Just for Laughs is, but I think there is one. But they weren't even letting comics post the content. So if I did Just for Laughs or CBC presents Just for Laughs or whatever it is, and then there's a clip of me and it's like super viral, I can't post it on my own.
They own it.
They own it. So it's crazy. Like that's brutal. Even Comedy Central, if you do Comedy Central, some gala performance in the States, you can still post that content. Still, it's anybody's content.
Mm-hmm.
So I've heard these stories where people like do the Just for Laughs, then they can't post any content. They don't get any followers from it. They don't get ahead. They don't get more comedy bookings. They don't make more money. So the big reason why you want to do Just for Laughs as a Canadian is to get those accolades, to say that I did it, and then the people who work there will write you a letter as part of your package where you need 6 to 8 letters to get a visa to move here. And they wouldn't give me that. They wouldn't put me on. So I had to get my visa purely based on my own merit, which, I mean, is better, but it's harder. So I had to, show all my financials of like, here's all the shows that I was doing in Calgary and Edmonton and Vancouver and Toronto, and here's all my sales and here's all my followers. Where a lot of the comics who come here and then they end up going home, but they do get the visa based on doing Just for Laughs. So Just for Laughs didn't want to give me a shot in some ways because they were like, we don't like him. We don't want him to go off and do well in the States. So
is that because of your political stuff?
Basically, because I'm not liberal.
Right, because you got a huge social media following based on like a lot of the jokes you were making about Teresa Tam and Jagmeet Singh. You had like a lot of dub over videos. They're hilarious.
Yeah. I mean, I'm trying to like shift away from those. Like those were kind of early on, and people kind of think, some Canadians like, that's what like blew you up. And it's like, not really. Like if you look at all my biggest videos, they're all stand-up bits. my over 1 million view videos that gain the most followers are all stand-up bits.
So
And most of them have
those
no
bits
accent.
are like ones that people kind of ripped from you and just posted everywhere, like
The
that
other
kind of
one,
thing.
I mean, some people post the Olivia Chow dubs and stuff, but I do get views from them and followers and stuff. But the main stuff that really gets me followers and has been just straight stand up.
Just clips from your stand-up.
Just
like
clips from my
routine.
stand up, clips from my comedy specials. I have 4 comedy specials on YouTube, Ben Bankas comedy on YouTube, but I have the Permission to Laugh, which was a lot of COVID stuff, and that was like right during that, and that came out, and I think they were still going in and out of lockdown when I had that come out.
How was that doing stand-up during lockdown?
I mean, it was brutal. I mean, it didn't happen.
Like
So,
nothing. There was nothing
no,
available.
No, the first time I came to Austin, Texas was in 2020. So there's a comic in Canada, or from Canada, called Jason. His name's Jason Rouse, and he moved here he was living in California. He's on a green card for a long time and was living in Cali, and there was no stand-up. So then he moved here along with, everybody else when Rogan came.
Yeah.
And Kill Tony came, Tony Hinchcliffe came, and it really just kind of started like a gold rush in a way of comics coming here and being able to speak freely. Shows were actually happening. And yeah, the woke comics were mad about it. They were like, how can you do comedy in a pandemic? And oh yeah, all those Austin comics, they're, which kind of made more people want to come and sold more tickets for anybody who wanted to live here or be part of this scene, because it's like, well, those guys are badass. They don't give a shit. And everybody else is like worried.
Well, it feels like it became like a liberty thing. Like the comics were the ones standing up to power.
Some of them. I mean, a lot of them weren't. So during lockdown in Canada, I did a show in a park. I started it in June of 2020. And we did the first show. It was really good. It was Chrissy Pitts Park. There was a big hill, and it was packed with people. So we just showed up with a mic and amp and spotlight. We're like, we're going to do a comedy show. And everybody's like, great, because there's nothing open. You can't go to a restaurant. You can't go to a comedy show. You can't go to anything. You can't go to a movie theater. So people loved it. And we're like, we'll be back next week. We came back next week. They came, the cops came in full force, like 10 squad cars. They had bylaw officers.
Holy
and
shit.
they were trying to shut it down. There was a bylaw officer. I forget his name. It was like, I think it was, his last name was Coward. I swear to God. This was a real thing. His last name was Officer Coward. And he was a bylaw officer in Toronto with braces. He was an adult with braces. And so he's like, if you don't shut this, like, I was hosting the show, so I'd host, and then I'd bring a comic on, and then I'd stand off to the side, and then I'd go back and do a few more minutes. I was doing more than usual because it's like, I haven't even been able to do comedy. I was trying to do as much as I could. Mm-hmm. And then he came up to me, the 2 bylaw officers with tons of cops as like backup, came up to me being like, you need to shut this down right now, or there's going to be like consequences. I'm like, what are the consequences? They're like, we don't know yet. We're going to find out. And like, I was like, give me a second, like talk to the other comics. And I was like, well, we're going to keep doing it. You guys can figure out what you want to do. So then he went back to the cops there for another hour, and I was making fun of him, being like, that guy's name is Officer Coward, and he has adult braces, and the people in the audience are clapping and like dying laughing. And then eventually he came back and basically said, okay, you can keep doing the show, but we're giving you this like $3,000 ticket. So they gave me a $3,000 ticket. It was broken up in like 3 different tickets for 3 different things, like a noise complaint, noise violation, and then one was like a ticket for not listening to instructions during a emergency.
But nothing directly for doing comedy.
Not like
during
for
COVID.
what I was saying. Well, yeah, it was like for a gathering, creating a gathering during COVID, and then one of them was for not stopping when he told me to stop during an emergency. Some bull, and yeah, so we took that $3,000 fine, and I posted about it on social media, and we had some backup. Doug Stanhope, an amazing American comic that's famous all over the world for really not giving a crap about anything, and he posted it. We started a GoFundMe for it, so he shared it. Russell Peters shared it, and we were able to cover the $3,000, which we ended up I ended up not even paying the ticket with that $3,000. We just used that to keep paying for equipment because I was renting equipment every week, and and paying the comics. I was paying comics. Like every comic that did a spot, there'd be like 10 comics, and I'd give them all $50. So I made like no money. And then we decided, okay, we're going to do it in a different park. So the week after that, we did it in a different park, and there was no bylaw. Nobody came. It was just a great time. And we ended up doing that for another like 7 weeks before the bylaw officers started coming by and being like, well, they didn't know what to do. I mean, it's a show in a park. It's packed. It's on a hillside. So the biggest show, I think we had like 500 people hanging out. And it would be nighttime. Like it would start at like 7 or 8, and then it would get dark. And we had a spotlight so the people could just hang out and watch. People brought their own booze. People were smoking weed and smoking, and not. It was a fun time. It was the only cool thing you could do. But then it did get to the point where they started having police drones flying around, and then police were hiding in the bushes and like, filming it and like making evidence of that we were,
breaking protocol,
breaking curfew or
'Cause
whatever.
a lot of people that follow my channel, because I got my start covering the Freedom Convoy when that was happening. And it was really just a case, like I'd been paying attention to the news for a long time. And if you're paying enough attention and looking at what's actually happening, you'll see the picture that they draw for you. And then you see what's actually happening. And it's like, like what? Like, where do you even draw this conclusion? You're just making up stories, right?
Yeah.
And this is where it was. When the convoy happened, I was like, I got to tell this story.
Yeah.
Right? Because it was just ridiculous. And people, who live in, I don't know how bad it was in Austin, but I know like a lot of Texas, people in Florida, a lot of the United States in general, they just had no idea how crazy it was in Canada.
Yeah.
Like nuts.
I mean, they saw a lot of Canadians coming here, and they heard about it that way, just kind of firsthand. But back to me doing the show in the park, eventually they came, by the 11th week, they came to shut it down permanently. Like they came one week, like cops came and they took pictures with me, and they're like, no, it's fine. You're good. We don't care. I was like, great. And then the next week they came in full force, and they're like, you have to like they came up to me towards the end of the show. They had cops there the whole show, like watching it, like making us intimidated. And then they came up the end, like there was maybe 2 comics left, and they were like, yeah, you got to stop right now or we're going to like arrest you or some shit like that. I was like, oh, okay. So we stopped, and then they're like, we're going to, the next day they came to my house. The bylaw officers came to my house with more fines of like $7,000. So it was like 7 plus the 3. So it was like 10 grand in fines.
And still you hadn't paid the first initial.
I hadn't paid it because I hired a lawyer to like look into it, and then they put it in a queue, and the queue, like it took, I don't think we did that case till like 2 years later.
Right.
Because there were so many violators of, there was musicians who had, playing in the park, and there was other just reason, people who didn't wear a mask at a grocery store, whatever they were, all these like BS violations that they had to go through. So it was like a 2-year queue. And then when it got down to it, by that point, the judges doing that didn't care, and they made it like $500. That was like what the best they could do. So instead of 10 grand, it was $500. But that's how I got my start. Really, people think it's like, oh, he was doing the racist impressions. Like, well, kind of. I was doing them in the park too. And I had people coming up to me like, you're giving me life for, doing this. Like this show is all I look forward to. Like the people were sad during COVID, during lockdown in Toronto. So people were looking forward to it. And then the comics, the other comedians that, you say like, oh, comedians were the ones fighting it. Not all of them. There were comics emailing the police every week, telling them to shut down my show. There were comics in the community pages.
Other comedians. Were they, why?
Because they were, well, obviously, I mean, the real reason, they're jealous that I was creating something and doing something, but they were brainwashed. They were far leftists. I mean, they're probably still far left, and they thought, they were saying things like, he's spreading the disease through the community, and he's the reason COVID's still around is because of gatherings like this, and like if we could just, and yeah, calling the cops, emailing the cops, telling them to shut it down. And yeah, so a lot of there was comics threatening, saying, I'm making a list of all the comedians who participated in Ben Bankas's park shows, and you're going to be blacklisted from Comedy Bar. So it was a really crazy time, but I was able to capture that audience, get a lot of people's emails, and once finally Doug Ford made this, he basically said, okay, towards the end of it, we're going to start doing $25,000 fines and potential 5-year jail terms for anybody doing any type of gathering during the lockdown. And then at the same time, he said, but bars can be open half full. So we found a bar that was cool. It was called, shout out Annex Social, Bloor or Bathurst and DuPont in Toronto. And they just were like, we don't care. Like, let's pack it. And so we just packed it every week after that. And it was a great success. And then I transitioned that show to another comedy club that doesn't exist anymore called the Royal Comedy Theater, and which is a small comedy club on Bloor Street, Bloor West. And then from there we moved it to Yuck Yucks, and then I started selling out Yuck Yucks. And
I saw you last year in Vancouver. It was a great show.
Yeah, we started selling out in Toronto, and then eventually it just became a cross Canada tour, and filmed all those sets, put out a ton of clips, and then Americans started catching on, liking the stand-up, especially the permission to laugh stuff and making fun of masks and all that. And yeah, and the rest is kind of history. Now I'm in Austin, Texas, and I'm passed as a Mothership regular, just doing spots, Mothership, seeing Rogan there and seeing other, Tony and all the other comics, and becoming part of that and touring the States. I have like a 70-city tour right now, so
that's amazing. Good work.
Pretty sweet.
Yeah, really good work. That's awesome. So this is a thing that's kind of come up recently, is Canadians that leave Canada are seen as like traitors. There's I don't know if you've been catching up on all the Team Canada crap. Like it's gone so far that like we're not in British Columbia, we're not allowed to buy alcohol that's made in a red state according to the government. 'Cause people don't even realize like Canada's got this communist sort of like alcohol regulatory body where they're like in Ontario, the only people can sell beer is the beer store.
Yeah.
It's like literally the government
or the
beers.
LCBO.
Yeah.
And apparently those are owned partially by like foreign countries.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, they're supposed to be government, like you're supposed to think like, oh, the government's making money off selling booze, but really it's apparently China has a stake in LCBO.
Shut up. Really?
I mean, somebody Google it, but I'm pretty sure that's true.
Yeah, that's crazy. So, but then it's created all this stuff, and it's all like Trump derangement syndrome. That's like the biggest export from the U.S. right now because nothing else is allowed in Canada. But yeah, so Trump's made all these like threats of tariffs, and it doesn't matter what you think about it. It is what it is, right? And we're just kind of caught in the crossfire. A lot of people who are, for traditional reasons, because you're coming to America just largely for your success, keep your career going. But then it turns into this thing like, oh, well, you're going to America, you're a traitor. You're a traitor to the flag. But, you got
Americans are like, you're a fucking Canuck.
Yeah, right.
And they're looking at you like, not really. They're mostly very accepting, I find, in America. And when the thing with Trump, like the initial tariff and 51st state and Governor Trudeau, and I would go to the airport and show my Canadian passport, like every TSA agent was like, oh, Canada, sorry about everything's going on. Like, like people, like even they're just nice about it. Yeah. Canadians are the ones that if you go through TSA in Canada and you got an American passport, okay, maybe we'll search you a little harder. Maybe because there's all this propaganda, and I just tweeted about it. There's like 2 instances of Canadians being detained or people crossing the border being detained. I don't know if you heard about this. But
no, fill me in.
So, well, there was one woman that was detained she's Canadian, but she was going from Mexico to San Diego, like from Tijuana to San Diego or whatever.
Okay.
But the story is ridiculous. First of all, she was working for a weed company, which you're not allowed to do if you're Canadian and even if you work for a weed company in Canada, you're not supposed to be allowed to come into the States, technically, even though it's legal. Yeah, because of the federal law. But she was working for a weed company in the States. She had her visa expired, and instead of going back to Canada, she goes to Mexico, and then decides, which is fine, but then she thinks, oh, I'm going to cross the border back in, and she shows up with no visa and goes, I want to apply for a visa here today, get it, and then cross. And they're like, what? Like, that's not even a thing. And it was just there's this whole, you can read about it. I've read about it. And she was detained for 2 weeks and she was in an ICE facility. And it was this, it's a horror story. And so now all the CTV and CBC are spreading this propaganda that, it's really likely that you'll be detained and you'll have all your technology searched at the border. It's like,
is that what that's all about? I saw an article talking about that. I was going to dig to the bottom of that this week.
but that's all it is. It's that
It was
one
someone
instance.
who committed, like, actually didn't follow the rules and she got in trouble for it.
And was probably a idiot about it. And then there's another guy, I didn't read about the other guy, but he was like a Romanian citizen that, accidentally crossed the border. He was driving close and didn't know, in a rental, and got detained. It's like, yeah, that stuff was happening under Biden too.
Dude, I had
Nobody was
fans that were
talking
like,
about it.
Clyde, be careful crossing into the United States. I'm a dual citizen, so I had no problem. Like, it was no issue there.
No.
But they were so friendly. Like,
Yeah.
everywhere.
I think, no, it's total. So Canada has the propaganda with the crossing the border. They have the propaganda of boycotting the products. They have the propaganda of, all this anti-American propaganda. And then Americans are just like, to Canadians, they're nice. So it's really crazy, man. And people in Canada being like, you're a traitor for moving there. Yeah, you're a low IQ idiot. Like, you have no future. You have no good business going on. You didn't create anything for yourself. So now you're sitting in Canada going, oh, anybody who wants to move to America is a traitor. We're the same continent. I mean, we've always had Canadians with dual citizens. Like, I'm pretty sure the most dual citizens that exist are dual with Canada because of it's that close. And
Just the border. Like,
and we're allies. So, and people want, well, Trump's the one ruining that. Not really. Trudeau is the one who ruined that by taking away people's rights specifically during the lockdowns. And Trump said, like, I don't want to do business with people who don't prioritize freedom of speech. And he's, I'd rather do business with Argentina. They're a big country. They have hundreds of million, they have 100 million or
well,
people.
he's turned around too, and he's putting these tariffs on everybody. It's not like Canada is singled out as like one individual nation that's getting it. Like, and not to mention, Canada's had tons of tariffs for a long time on the United States because they want to protect things like the dairy industry.
Yeah,
and all
that's
these
one of the propagandas from the States is being like, well, you guys had tariffs. It's like, yeah, but we had to because otherwise we just wouldn't have any industry. But then it's like, well, that's what Trump's fighting against. He's like, if we're going to subsidize you or let you have your little industries that you wouldn't have if you didn't have these tariffs, then at the very least, like, make sure there's no like terrorists crossing the border or like illegal, like cut down on the illegal immigration, and Canada's like, okay, I guess we could do that. And it's like, we're scared about our sovereignty. It's like, yeah, you should be. You've been eroding it for the past 10 years. You've been talking about how, like, downtown Toronto, statue of Sir John A. Macdonald at Queen's Park is covered up in a box. His head is in a bag. Okay,
that's the one they tore down, right?
They didn't tear it down. It's still up. Maybe they have by now, but when
there was one that they tore. I thought maybe
they tore down the Ryerson University, the Lord Ryerson or whatever, the guy that, he was racist in 1867. Oh, good.
Yeah,
who isn't?
Yeah,
who is? I mean, I am now more because he tore that statue down because it's ridiculous. But yeah, these people want to act, and by these people, I mean the liberals and the people in power want to act like Doug Ford wants to act like he's a conservative. Then why doesn't he go down to that statue and make sure that Sir John A.'s head, and George Washington was racist. He had slaves. So should he be erased from history?
Don't give him any ideas, man.
Well, they already want to, and they tried to do that with a lot of the Confederate statues. Trump was the one who, I think, either put some of them back or said, well, at the very least, they shouldn't be destroyed. They should be put in a museum.
Yeah, well, wasn't it like General Lee? He was largely respected, even though he was on the other side, but he was still an American.
I mean, it's history. Like, people were racist. Like, so it's just this erosion of our history in Canada, and the erosion of, we don't have a culture. Remember during COVID, Trudeau was basically leading the charge for we need to cancel Canada Day. That was a big thing. So Canada Day for the American followers is like the 4th of July. And they wanted to cancel it because, oh, well, not everybody feels comfortable with blah, blah, blah. And also, oh, the fireworks, that could trigger some people who just got here from Syria that they would, oh, no, the Jews are coming or whatever. Who cares? Sorry, if you can't live here and celebrate with us and deal with the fireworks, then, like,
Adios.
I mean, either adios or just screw you in general. Like,
Right.
I'm not big on the, like, go, get these people out. I am. But, like, it's like you don't like it here. You don't like our celebrations. Why are you here? And the reason is because we're going to give you money to be here.
Yeah, it's economic.
We're basically giving you money to be a liberal voter. So, and it's the same with the American mass immigration. They're giving people money to live here to be, and within the UK and in Europe, to vote for the most liberal party possible. And look what's happening in France. Marine Le Pen is apparently supposed to go to jail for 4 years, and she was the front runner of their election. And so that's not politically motivated.
Well, they're pulling a Trump on her, right? So,
Worse.
well, they tried to put Trump in jail.
Yeah.
They worked at that for, what, 8 years to put Trump in jail? It didn't work. It damn near came close to working.
Yeah.
But then here they are in France. They're finishing the
They're
job.
just straight up doing it. And
Yeah.
so this whole, anytime you hear like if Pierre Poilievre in Canada, the election's coming up. Pierre Poilievre, if he wins, that's the end of democracy. So the end of democracy only happens if the other party wins. But if one party stays in power forever, that's democracy. That's a lie. They want authoritarianism, and Canadian authoritarianism. It'll be nice, right? But with Mark Carney, he'll be a great dictator because it's obvious what's happening. The people who are against it are, unfortunately, I think, dementia patients at this point. The boomers who are graffitiing swastikas on Teslas and protesting at Tesla things and going, Pierre, he's gonna play right into Trump's hands, and he's not. He's been around and a figurehead in Canada for longer than Carney.
Yeah.
Nobody knows who Carney is. He just appeared out of nowhere.
Well,
And apparently he was the finance minister or something like that.
yeah, he
the whole
was
time.
the governor of the Bank of Canada. Like when just before
Destroying the dollar.
Well, totally. And actually what he did was lower the interest rates a ton, causing the housing bubble. So the whole housing bubble is because of that guy, and they want to put him in charge now.
I don't even want to own a home at this point. Like it seems, you put, unless you're really rich and you want to own multiple homes, or you want to go in the business of owning properties and renting them out. Like, what is the real, just to be like, I own it and I don't give a shit. It's like, who cares? It's still cheaper to rent, always.
Oh, not in BC, man. So
No?
Well, that was a dilemma that I ran into. So my wife and I, we rented our home for 11 years, and then all of a sudden got rug pulled. Like, our landlord kicked us out on 2 months' notice because that was the legal requirement. And it was just before we were going for a 3-week trip to Japan as well. So we got rug pulled pretty hard, and our rent went up we had to move into an apartment, and it's like $20,000 more a year than it was when we were renting a house.
Brutal.
Like, this is how crazy our economy's gone in Canada.
Vancouver and BC is really tough.
It's insane.
But my main point is that because the houses are so inflated and expensive, you have to pay that plus a huge down payment. So it's like,
right.
Say it's $3,500 a month rent versus $3,500 a month mortgage. Yeah. But then the house is worth $800,000. So you got to put down payment of like $200K or $150K to have, it's just crazy. So, and they've done this, they've made it like this because they want people to rent, because they don't want people to own. We know what it is. It's the globalist thing. They talked about it a million times. It's you'll own nothing and be happy, which right now I do and am, but, well, I own a car, but I'm paying for it, like financing a car, but yeah, man, it's bad. I don't trust Carney at all. I don't know why anybody would. And the whole anti-American propaganda thing is the only thing keeping his campaign alive. If none of this, so I don't know. The one mistake I think Trump made with this is like dude, why would you want the Liberals to still be in power in Canada unless he just thinks they're a pushover? It's almost like, you know, having the Liberals be in Canada is like instilling a dictatorship overseas, where it's like, well, now we can get all the oil, but it's not even that, because
They're ruining all those things.
they're not allowing those pipelines to be built.
Yeah.
If all the pipelines that were about to be built, Keystone and all those other pipelines that were going to be built were built when they were supposed to be built like 5-10 years ago, none of this would even be happening at all, because Canada would be energy independent. And they would also be a huge, bigger trading partner of oil and natural gas to the U.S. and to China.
Oh, Japan wants like tons of natural gas, and
So there's just this disconnect between reality and the woke agenda. And it's sad because the woke agenda is an American phenomenon as well. It started here and then leaked out to, and other countries just took it way too serious, and then they became more authoritarian and are not allowing the less woke candidates to take back control or get their shot at leadership to fix these problems. Like Trump right now, the stock market's tanking, so that means that Trump is doing a bad job. But when Trump had the stock markets all-time highs in his first term, people
it's
were
not
like,
his
that,
responsibility. It's nothing to do with him, right?
or that's not an indicator of how well he's doing. So it doesn't make any sense. And then the other thing is, who's getting hit the hardest by the stock market going down? The rich people that the Liberals say they hate.
Yeah.
So it's the same thing with, we want all the cars to be electric, just not that brand, and we're gonna protest that, and we're gonna draw swastikas on those.
Did you hear this? So this was David Eby, the premier of British Columbia. He amended the
Jewish?
grants. The what?
Is he Jewish? No, his last name's Hebe.
No, Eby, not Hebe, not Hebrew.
That's funny.
Yeah, no, Eby. I think he's more Chinese than anything. He's a white guy, but he's got a lot of ties with the Chinese party, the Communist Party. But no, he put together this one thing where it was like,
Do you want a beer?
oh, sweet, yeah, I'll take that. Thank you. How long we got?
Whatever.
Okay. So, well, obviously you have things to do as well, but so this story. So David Eby, what he did is, it's always been about save the planet, right? All of this stuff, save the planet. We got to cut down, make you drive electric cars, all this stuff. So they had this incentive program that if you buy an electric car, you get whatever tax savings, all this crap.
Couple grand.
They
back.
just amended that. So if it's a Tesla
Only-
product, it's exempt from the grants. Like it's so, but it's like, what's the image that Canada's putting forward? It's just like the image of a petulant child, right? Like we're not.
Tesla is the one that has created the charging station infrastructure in Canada. Like if you go to a Walmart in Canada, they have Tesla superchargers,
Yeah.
and that's where everybody's charging their EVs. Whether it's a Kia, whether it's a Hyundai, whatever it is, Tesla's the one helping create the infrastructure so that the other brands of cars can even compete. Because otherwise, it would just be everybody fend for themselves, and you have to charge it in your own home. Tesla's the one putting these superchargers. The other chargers are terrible. It takes like 10 hours or something.
Yeah.
Tesla's the only one that takes like half an hour or an hour. So it's so misguided. It's so wrong. It's really sad. And the Canadians who are going to keep voting for the Liberals they're just completely out of touch with what's really going on. And like I was saying about the stock market thing, look at Nancy Pelosi. She was allowed to make all that money on the stock market. And that's partly why Trump's doing this, is because he wants to hurt all the Democrats who, and I mean like in the government, who are basically doing openly doing insider trading.
Mm-hmm.
And that's okay. That's fine. But if Trump wants to fix a country, which, yeah, it's going to cause the economy to momentarily, because all these companies have backroom deals with each other and that he's trying to kind of cut down on a bit. And that's why the stock market's going down, because the companies are, they're used to having all these the current trade deals that were in place, even if they hurt America as a country, but it's good for the companies and it's good for the people who are investing and doing insider trading in those companies. Screw them and screw the companies that are trying to screw over the states. Tesla never tried to screw over the states, and that's why they're being punished.
And Tesla's down in the stocks right now, but I see this as an opportunity to buy. Really, like if
Dude, the robot's going to come out, the helper, the little slave robot that walk around and you know can bring you a beer and stuff. That's going to be happening in like a year and a half, and as soon as that happens, it's going to be a revolution. And
do you think it's like the next iPhone or whatever? Is that the next?
I think so. I think it should be. I think it would make everybody feel better having those around. I think they would be cool to have around. I'm not against having the robots. I mean, I'd rather the robots than, illegal immigration or mass migration. We won't need mass migration if you have Uber, the self-driving cars. Well, then you don't need 1 million people from, countries you've never even knew existed. I mean, we knew India existed, but I mean, in Canada, that's the thing. There's Indians everywhere, right? But it's like, well, okay, let's make the cars drive themselves because that's the main job they're coming to do. I'm not talking about people who are educated. I'm not talking about people who come legally.
Yeah.
But people in Canada.
And a lot of those people are getting duped into coming too, right? Like the
universities and colleges are making money off of them.
Massive. And
they have their whole racket is basically with those immigration lawyers and doing the visa to come and to do school. And they just recently got rid of the ability for a lot of those visas to be able to work. Because before you could come here for school and then just work at Tim Hortons or work at Uber and work all these jobs and taking jobs away from other people. But they got rid of that. And now there's a lot of universities, I think Seneca College, correct me if I'm wrong, but in Toronto is like closing a lot of their or stopping a lot of their programs because so few people are applying because they realize,
they're catching on.
The jig's up. You can't just come here, get this, do a English course and end up stealing like 5 jobs from people. So get the robots in, let them do the Uber. I want a robot in a robot car bringing my food. I don't care anymore. And to all the people, well, what about the economy? It's going to be, well, sorry, you were stupid for too long. You didn't figure anything out. You didn't buy a camera. You didn't start a pot. Sorry, but you could have done something. You could have used your brain.
So I hear this a lot.
Grass cutting companies, anything.
Yeah, that's good.
Pool. Like if I wasn't a comedian, I'd be starting a grass cutting, pool cleaning, snow removal, like where depending where you live. There's so many little. That's the new way to get rich. Mm-hmm. Start it yourself. Do it yourself for the first year. Clean the pools yourself and make the money, and then hire somebody later once you get more money. Save up.
So this was a big thing, like at the turn of the century, or even longer ago, when they mechanized farming, for example. Like 80% of the population worked in farms picking fruits and vegetables and all that stuff.
Yeah, and
then they mechanized the whole thing. They're using gasoline to get all the crops out of the ground. And there's like, 1 or 2 people actually working in the fields now. They thought at the time, there was all these, elitists saying, oh, they're going to be useless eaters. You're going to have no use for them. What are we going to do about it? Pontificating about how to rid themselves of these masses, right? But then they found new economies, and all these people found different jobs, different career paths, and it freed everybody up to make things better at the end of the day. Like we have all the things that we have around us thanks to the fact that somebody figured out how to mechanize farming, right? And then it just continues on and on.
They called them Luddites. I mean, with the Industrial Revolution, they were called Luddites, were the people who were against the Industrial Revolution. They tried to destroy factories. They tried to, because they saw it as taking away from the artisans that were the people who, what about the guy who sits there all day and makes one pot at a time and it's still crap. It's not even but at the end of the day, that made that guy a more sought after specialty where it's like, I want a handmade pot. Okay. But then we can also just go to Walmart and get a crappy pot if you want for
you have choice.
$10, or you can spend $500. And the people who want to do make pots and shit for the rest of their lives, okay, you can keep doing that, but you're going to have to figure out a way to market it. You're going to have your own social media, or then I don't know how people were doing that. But my point is, people adapt, like you said, and I agree. It's like we're going to have to adapt to robots, but hopefully when the robots come, the Tesla robots, the stocks are going to go back up for all that, because it's going to be life-changing, and there will be copycats. There will be other, probably even car companies trying to copy them. So
Yeah, I'm absolutely, I'm with you on that one. I think that everything's just looking good largely for the most part.
I think things are a lot better than people talk about. I mean, I complain about stuff for fun, but just what I'm seeing. And Canada is still a great country, and I still love Canada. Anybody who calls me a traitor is somebody who probably never supported me to begin with for moving here, which doesn't even make sense, because so what? Would I be a traitor if I moved to Spain for a few years?
Well, the funny part I found was Mike Myers has been pretty outspoken. He hasn't lived in Canada for like 40 years, and here he is, getting on TV with the Canadian Tire logo on his thing, like as if that's symbolic of like what it is to be Canadian, right?
He's being paid. He's being paid by the Canadian government to do that, and he's taking that money because he's not getting paid to do anything else. And Lorne Michaels was he originally Canadian? I forget.
I thought he was a New Yorker,
or maybe he was. I know he's Jewish, but
I know a lot of the guys that did, like a lot of guys from SCTV came over and they did SNL.
Yeah,
that was a big shift. And that was one of those things where Canadians were losing talent to the United States.
He is Canadian. Lorne Michaels is Canadian.
You're kidding me? I didn't know that.
Yeah, he's Canadian American. He's like a dual now, but I'm pretty sure he was born in Canada. So Lorne Michaels is Canadian. Mike Myers. That's why so many Canadians were on those shows as well. I know there was SCTV and Second City, but Mike Myers is being, and I don't know if this is true, but my suspicion, and I have nothing against that, really. Like, if somebody came up to me, like, even if Trudeau, like, as much shit as I talk, but if they were like, we'll give you $5 million to just not, I'd be like, all right, maybe. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. I'm not gonna lie to you. Like, somebody wants to give me $5 million to have a stance, I'd think about it for sure, pretty heavily. So I get why he's doing it. I also always thought he was funny. I loved Wayne's World. I loved, Austin Powers. I grew up on that stuff, So I like that he's trying. But they should have done this 5 years ago, before they got rid of there's no Canadian culture. Our culture's wearing turbans. No, the culture is hockey and Mike Myers. That was Canadian culture. Mike Myers and Jim Carrey,
Kids in the Hall, like
people watched them, and Canadians were proud to see Canadians going to America and being successful. Nobody called Mike Myers a traitor for going and making Austin Powers and doing all those, and Wayne's World and all those movies in the States. Nobody did. They were proud of Canadians who were going to the States who were being successful. So this new "you're a traitor" thing is dumb. And Mike Myers, yeah, I get it. It's like, where are you coming from? You were. I mean, he's being quiet because he's rich and probably needed to make a little bit more money. They probably reached out to a lot of people, not just him. They probably reached out to Jim Carrey too, and Russell. And
Mike's the one who answered the phone.
And Mike was like, and they're like, and probably Lauren was in on it, going, "Hey, Mike, do you want to come and just like be part of SNL again?" I mean, I would say yeah if I was him, and get paid by us, and get paid by the Canadian government, and promote and do those little videos with Carney. Why not? Why not? Why would I know why he's doing it? And do I agree with the like I said, we should have been making hockey and Canadian culture. We should have never walked away from any of that. We should have been. Trudeau should have stood strong and said, "Yeah, okay, people did things." Sir John A. Macdonald, but he was a man of the times. Mm-hmm. A lot, like, we're not going to erase history because
he's largely responsible for Canada becoming what it is. Going to the West, like.
It's not even. I don't even. If you look at it, it's like, oh, he was part of the slave trade. No, he wasn't. He was anti-slave. They were mad at him because he brought all the Chinese to build the railroad. Well, if we didn't do that, there wouldn't be a country to begin with. Without the Canadian history is tied to the building of that railroad. Mm-hmm. When the Confederation, because I believe it's Confederation, right?
That's right. Yeah.
It's not like America's
No,
not a
it's not a
republic.
republic, and it's a British parliamentary system.
Yeah.
That the confederations.
But they came together and they were like, how do we keep this together? Like, we need to friggin' train. The first trains in the Western Hemisphere were not in North America. They were in the Caribbean. Cuba had the first steam engines in the Western Hemisphere. So, and the first paved streets before Cuba, before Che Guevara and all that.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah, because they were and through American money and like they had better stuff than the States. The States was like basically the reason the whole revolution there happened was because of America raising the prices of, I forget, it was sugar, or bananas, sugar cane and all that. But most of South America, the reason they have trains and stuff, they still owe money to Britain for building their trains.
Right.
Like Europe had the most advanced trains and roads and everything, and they were the one. Spain was pouring money into South America and the Caribbean. That's why Cuba was so advanced. So and Canada was looking at, like, Buenos Aires was way more advanced than Ottawa. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it was
like,
hot back in the day. That was
Ottawa is like it's like pioneer village, and so the railroad and the idea that we're gonna chastise a guy because he built it by 2025 standards it was unethical. Yeah, because you're an idiot and you don't know how history works. I mean, this is
But that's the whole mindset, right? So it's judge everything by contemporary values, not how it was. I mean, you can go back in history and judge anybody like that. It would always be. They're always the bad guy at that stage.
Yeah, but I should get out of here just because my family's. By the way, I had a kid in the States, and it was a great experience.
That's a big deal
for for Canadians that are wondering, well, what's the difference in the healthcare. It's not that. I don't think it's that much more expensive for the care you're getting. It feels worth it versus the free care in Canada. I mean, we had a great doctor. Shout out Dr. Ham in Chatham, Ontario. If you're having kids in southwestern Ontario, go to Dr. Ham. Try to get him. He's very sought after, both surgeon for C-sections and just like regular deliveries. But the American hospitals are just, the food's better. It's just nicer. There's not everybody speaks English. The nurses, like the doctors in Canada are mostly great, but then some of the nurses are like, "Hello, I've done that." What the fuck is that? Sorry, but it's like,
I actually, when I had my first kid in a Canadian hospital, it was all fine until the nurses afterwards.
Right.
They were all giving me the gears like, well, you better get used to this, Dad. This is what you're going to have to do with your kids now, Dad. You're going to have to get used to changing diapers. I'm like,
those are alcoholics. I don't like.
Yeah, I know. I
hate.
I signed up for this.
Generally, I think nurses are annoying, and we all saw that during the 2020 to 2023. The friggin' TikToks they were making and all that stuff, just so embarrassing. They were just embarrassing. And a lot of them are just alcoholics, like slurring their words and stuff. Even here, there was one nurse that was just like, I just hate that. I just hate it.
Well, I know some good ones that have been fighting against what.
Right, there are good ones. Most of the good ones got fired.
Yeah, they got fired.
They ended up doing different jobs, and working other things, and a lot of them started businesses and are now happy they did. And
they're never going to go back to nursing.
I don't want to be a nurse. I started a business. There was a nurse that started a baby photography business that we did. So, but anyway, it's a great experience coming to the States. I still love Canada. Things I like in Canada, certain things I like better about Canada than I like here, and vice versa.
You can't get a good poutine here, I'm sure.
Can't get a good poutine. I mean, I still love Montreal. I still love, aside from the woke stuff, aside from the screaming fucking kafia people in the streets and all the like nonsense. Canada's beautiful. There are really good people there, and I miss it in a lot of ways. And I'm coming back. I just announced a really big show in Toronto, Meridian Hall. It's going to be 3,200 seats in November, so I'm going to be there. And I'm going to be touring Canada at the end of this month. I'm going to be in Halifax, April 24th to 26th. So if your listeners are in Halifax, come support me. Before I get out of here, I'll tell you. So I had a show in Halifax and PEI It was a 600-seat theater in Halifax and 300-seat small theater in PEI.
Yeah.
Both shows canceled a month before they were supposed to happen because a woke LGBTQ plus NGO that pushes that LGBTQ plus agenda with venues, with universities, with what, found out about me. And, you know, I don't know, somebody's complained about that. Somebody who worked there found that I was performing at these venues and basically harassed them, like extortion. Like, if you guys have this guy, we are going to go to the government and tell them to stop giving you subsidies for your venues, which most venues rely on in Canada because they're not bringing in any good acts to begin with. I mean, sorry, but drag time story hour isn't exactly paying the rent. But so that's what happened, and then we had to find a new venue, and luckily Yuck Yucks, who I'm always cool with, I got the Yuck Yucks tattoo there.
Oh, nice.
Hope you can see it, but can they see it?
It's in there somewhere.
But shout out Mark Breslin.
Airport thing. There.
Thank you. Yeah, from Toronto to Austin. But Mark Breslin, he's always stood up for free speech in Canada, and he doesn't care if you're selling out shows. Like, you'll be allowed to do his clubs. So Yuck Yucks in Halifax. I'm going to be in I'm going to be in Calgary. I'm going to be in Ottawa. I'm going to be in London, Ontario.
What's the website? Where can people?
benbankas.com for all my tickets. BenBankas.com. I have a podcast as well, Bankas Podcast, on my YouTube.
That's in the description down below, so go check out the description. You got Ben Bankas on YouTube, and follow him on Twitter. He's down there below. And
no, it was really, really nice meeting you, and I hope to see a lot more of you. I hope you get moved in quick, and
we're hoping.
Cedar Park's really nice. That's where our pediatrician was. We're switching because it's too far from where we are, but it's a nice area. It's a super nice area. Austin is really nice, and a lot of Canadians are more familiar with the border cities of America, which are a little rougher. You know, the Detroits and the Rochester, New Yorks, and Buffalo, New York, and even, I mean, on the West Coast, there's Seattle, which is a little rough and kind of disgusting. But Portland. But once you come down south, you're like, oh, these are nice cities. Like Nashville, Austin, they're beautiful cities. Phoenix, Arizona. Like I love all of America, really, I do. And I'll come to any city, Syracuse, New York, Albany. Even if I'm almost getting shot, I'll come and do a show. So, and if you're American and you're listening, I just mentioned the Canadian because I know you have a big Canadian audience, but I have tons of American shows too. So come see me. Buffalo, if you want to cross the border, just see if you get detained or not.
Ben Bankas.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, man.
Thanks, bro.
Really appreciate it.
Thank you.